All right, welcome back to the Generation Z podcast, episode 30. You listening to this podcast, you are going to die. And it sounds a bit bad. Sorry to start on a negative note, but it's true. You're going to die. And you might think it's obvious, but actually just take a second to contemplate. At one point, you're no longer going to be here. It's inevitable. You are going to die at some point. Just take a minute to actually think about that for a moment. So today's podcast is about death and perspective. So we're going to change death from being something that's negative, that's feared, into something where you can change your perspective on it, to use it as a motivator to make yourself more grateful. And yeah, basically, to get more stuff done in your life, you need to understand that you are going to die. And people just put it to the back of their minds and kind of forget about it, get to the end of their life just before they are going to die and have a lot of regret. So that's kind of what we're going to go through today.
Yeah. So before we get started, do follow us on our Instagram page at thegenerationz, where we post the majority of our podcast content. Definitely give us a follow and let us know how you like these podcasts, what you want us to do more often or less, in fact, completely up to you. And also, if you prefer to watch our podcasts, we do upload the video versions on YouTube, and our YouTube channel is called The Generation Z Podcast.
Sweet. So, going to start with perspective about life. And most people just go about their day-to-day life and just accept that it's just their life, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really important to put into perspective how lucky you actually are to be alive. So the chances of winning the lottery, obviously, like barely anybody wins the lottery, right? And the chances
Yeah.
of winning the lottery is 1 in 45 million, right? Chances of being struck by lightning, again, something that's really not going to happen, is 1 in 10 million, right? To put your life into perspective, the chance of you being alive is 1 in 400 trillion. All
That's a
right.
joke.
You
And,
should not
and
be here.
you have overcome the impossible odds of being alive. If you
Literally.
think about that, 400 trillion in terms of numbers is just uncomprehendable
Yeah, you actually
how
cannot
large of a number that
understand.
is.
Yeah. And another way to think of it is, I've got a little quote. I can't remember what book I actually got this from, but you're the result of every one of your ancestors being tough enough to survive tens of thousands of generations of very challenging times. I mean, you
Mm.
put it in that kind of way. Think even like 100 years ago, right? Your great great granddad, right? Met your
You
out of
think about the
everybody in the
environment that
world.
they lived in,
Mm,
just in terms of like the earth and just how the environment on and how people lived, as you said, and how your ancestors lived, and they were able to survive and continue their bloodline, and in fact
yeah,
that you are the product of that.
yeah.
It's
And like
extremely kind of liberating to have
100%.
that perspective on life, I think.
Because another way to think about it is like, say your um, great great granddad or whatever, going back like 100 years or so, out of everybody in the world, he met your great great grandmother. And
Mm.
even though it sounds a bit weird, out of all the sperm that he produces in his life, one of those happened to be your great granddad. And your great
Mm.
granddad, out of everybody, out of the billions of people in the world, met your great great grandmother. And that continues until you were born. But not only until you were born, that's been happening for thousands of years before. Like,
Yeah. and
blows your
even
mind.
and even closer to you, you imagine there could you may have not have materialized by the choices that your mum and dad made in that
Mm,
specific moment. Like, your mum and dad may have decided that they didn't want to have 3 kids, and instead that they wanted to have two. And
yeah,
therefore, you, if you're the third child, then you wouldn't be alive right now because they made that choice, or something happened like that led up to that sort of instance, but maybe one situation in that kind of timeline may have stopped you from being the person you are. So
and actually, just one more thing on there as well is the last podcast we did was on a book called Stop Worrying, Start Living. And in there, it's talking about the chances of you being alive, but just from your parents. So, and don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it's if you had 300 million, I think, brothers and sisters, the chances of one of those being you would be almost zero as well. So out of all of
the numbers,
out of all of the children your parents could have produced, like, you still shouldn't be here.
So basically what we're trying to say here is that the odds are stacked against you from the get-go in terms of you shouldn't be here right now, and that makes you think, as a society, why do we excessively think about all our problems that we face, and we adopt a negative and victim mindset on life of, oh, why is this happening to me? We always think about the negatives, and we never seem to think about what's going right for us, do we?
Yeah, no, definitely. I know what you mean. I think with a positive perspective as well, your problems become obstacles, which of course are going to test you. They help mold you into a better version of yourself. So instead of saying, why is this happening to me? You can say, all right, I've got a problem here. Let's look at this. How can I overcome this? And you grow from that.
Yeah.
From that victim
this is happening
mindset.
This is happening for me. It's not happening to me. It's an opportunity to improve.
100%. And I think as well, like, just the numbers that we've been going through, as we've already said, like, you shouldn't be here. The perspective on that is a really good way to get gratitude from it. So I'm going to hit you with a couple more numbers if you haven't had enough already. But there are at least 100 billion planets in the Milky Way, which is our galaxy. And there is roughly 2 trillion galaxies in the universe. So, like, the number of planets you just can't even comprehend, right?
Yeah.
So gratitude, you're so insignificant, right? And you might think, oh, that's a bit harsh to say, but actually,
all the people just click off the podcast now. They're just like, not having this on a Friday afternoon.
just give me a minute, all right? You're so insignificant. However, your insignificance should put into perspective how unimportant your worries are in the grand scheme of things. To say, oh, I've got a deadline to meet on Friday. My whole week's gone to shit just because I've been worrying all week. Remember that you're just this tiny little human with a tiny little deadline at the end of the week, right? Like, it literally means nothing.
Yeah. No, I get that completely. And to do with these problems that we do have in our life, I think it's important to understand that these problems and life problems just don't go away. There's no such thing as having a problem-free life. And with a positive perspective on life, then you're able to understand that, yes, we do have problems and stuff, but we also, as time goes on, you only get better problems, if you know what I mean. So I think a lot of people that are physically disabled, it's a weird example to talk about, but I think it's got some value. Like, there's a lot of people that are physically disabled from birth, or they have some sort of event which makes them physically disabled.
Mm.
But that gives them such a better perspective on life, and they're a lot more grateful because they understand that there is a separation between their body and what they can actually do. Like, they understand the significance of that. They getting pretty spiritual here, but we are a spirit, we are not our bodies. And in this sort of context, if you're able to be grateful for what you have, you're also able to understand that and realize that happiness is actually a choice.
Mm.
So instead of, as you said, worrying about the insignificant problems that you have, you've just got to understand that problems are going to be there, but you've just got to enjoy life.
Yeah.
You know?
I think, yeah, like, your problems are so insignificant, but also you've already won by just being alive. And I
Exactly.
know loads of people going, "Oh yeah, but like, the thing is, I am alive and I do have problems." Yeah, well,
Mm.
you're still lucky to be here. Like,
Exactly.
and
Yeah,
I think as well,
100%.
like, when you take the perspective of how small you are and how lucky you are to be here, your worries kind of go to the side, and you can just kind of think like, let's just enjoy life. You don't actually have that long.
Mm.
Right? You
You've
say,
made the choice, that it gives you the choice to enjoy life, doesn't it? As I
mm,
said, like, happiness is a choice, and understanding that problems are inevitable, but expressing gratitude and understanding that these problems do come to an end makes you a lot less stressed and less worried about the future, I think.
yeah, definitely. And I think a good way to put it is to actually just think about your death. So if you're on a deathbed, you would realize that your current worries, whether that be like your finances, maybe how you dress, you might think, oh, I don't have the money to buy this designer hoodie, and everybody else has got this designer hoodie, some shit like that. Or you're worried that you didn't get enough likes on your social media post. You posted it and you waited 15
Yeah,
minutes and now you've deleted it because you didn't get enough likes. Or
yeah,
you're on 700 followers, you want 800 followers. Yeah, well, imagine if you just got hit by a car and you're like,
yeah.
dead.
Don't wait until
Yeah.
an event to then contemplate what's actually important in life, you know?
I can guarantee if you were on live support, you wouldn't be checking your Instagram going, oh, I just wish I got those 5 more followers.
Mm.
Oh, I wish I had
I
an
wish
extra
that
15
person
quid in the
texted me
bank.
back,
Yeah. Like,
or something like that. Something extremely insignificant. Yeah.
it puts it all into perspective.
Mm.
And we've said it before on the podcast as well. Negative gratitude. So take your phone. Obviously, you use your phone every day. You don't really think about it. And imagine your phone has been smashed up, and truly just like feel what you would feel if your
Mm.
phone was lost or broken, and now realize that you've got a phone.
Yeah.
And then you can go, oh my God, I've got a phone. I'm so
Yeah.
lucky to have a phone, that kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
all about perspective. And
Yeah.
once you get a good perspective, you get more gratitude. And once you've got gratitude, you can be more positive, I think.
I think there's a quote that Gary Vee said that gratitude is a real drug.
Mm,
And I agree perfectly, because I think as long as you're grateful, you can always keep that positive state of mind.
yeah.
And no matter what life throws at you, you're always able to be positive and be happy.
Yeah, exactly. So the next thing we want to speak about was death as a motivator. So as I said in the beginning, like, you are going to die, it's inevitable, but you don't want to be so scared of death that you never actually live. So, oh, but what if, like, there's a risk to doing that thing? I don't want to do that if there's a risk. Well,
Yeah.
get to the end of your life, you've not really done anything with your life, have
Yeah.
you?
You think that there's a risk because you're excessively thinking about the negative consequence of a situation. But
Mm.
I think that's on the other side of that risk is something that obviously you don't know, which is the scary part of it. But you don't know whether it's better. Most of the time, what is ever on the other side of risk is always what's good for you.
Yeah.
And I think it's I think it's important to understand how powerful just the notion of death can be as a motivator.
Mm.
So for people that are listening, if you don't really have like a mission or like a purpose or a life mission that you're working towards in terms of just the longevity, the goal for the end of your life, a potential life mission could be, just to start with, is I want to be able to lay on my deathbed and know that I did everything I wanted to and feel that I lived the life to my maximum potential. And if you think about that, that just gives me so much motivation to get up
Yeah.
and go do something right now.
Yeah, so much. Instead of just like sat in your room or just playing Xbox or something, and then suddenly you get some
Yeah.
illness or something goes wrong and
Yeah.
you haven't done anything with your life, like you
Yeah.
don't get that time back.
Exactly.
And I think people always go on like, oh, you never know, we might find some special medicine or something to live forever. You can't live forever.
Obviously, I think the life expectancy of human beings is definitely, it's only going to increase.
But up to a point.
Yeah,
And
like medicine is getting very advanced now
because
and that sort of stuff. But
economically, we
yeah,
can't live forever. There will be a point where we get overpopulated, or because imagine if everybody lived to 150, right?
yeah,
Imagine how many the population would get out of control. There'd be way too
not
much
a lot
pressure
of
on healthcare, all
space.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, right? So economically, we can't live forever.
Hmm.
But more importantly, is death is a good thing because death gives your life some significance. It gives meaning to your life. If
Yeah.
you live forever, then why would you do anything
Yeah.
if you're just here
What
forever?
is what is the point of life if it doesn't end?
But yeah, like if you think about it, if you were knowing that you were gonna die in 10 years, you'd suddenly start doing a lot more with your life than if you were to say
Yeah.
you knew you were going to live for another 100 years. And as we said, like death gives life significance. If there's no end to something, then it becomes meaningless. Like, say you went on a night out or something, right?
Yeah.
If that night out was to last forever, then it wouldn't have any meaning to it. That's why
Exactly. Yeah,
it's
that would
fun
just
because
be
it's
it
a
would just
certain
be
period of
normal.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to realize that death isn't a bad thing and it should be a motivator. You've been given this precious amount of time, as we've said, so make the most of it.
Yeah. Exactly. And also time as we grow older, recently for me and over this past year, time has become has sped up so much recently, and it also just tends to speed up a lot more when you're older.
Yeah, it
Like
does.
you think about when you were in junior school or primary school, how long the year was, how
Yeah,
long you had to wait until Christmas or something that was like enjoyable. But now it's, you wake up on a Monday, you blink and it's a Wednesday, and it's
yeah,
like, where has the time gone? And to me, that gives even more significance to times in
mm,
terms of it's something that you can't waste.
yeah,
You cannot, because it's finite. As you
yeah,
said, you could die tomorrow.
exactly.
So if you were born and given a clock, like a clock that goes down and be like, right, you've got 50 years
Yeah.
like start, like
You be shit,
where
shit, shit.
where would you start? Like for me, I'd be like, yeah, where would you start? Because you just want to do so much in 50 years, wouldn't you? And it would just give you like that boost to go out and do things.
Yeah, and people don't realize that that is basically what happens. Like,
Mm,
it is basically you're born and you have a certain amount of time, and when you're born, that stopwatch goes off and it just constantly ticks down. But we just don't know how long that time is.
mm.
But that is
Oh,
literally what happens.
yeah, so just as much as that life, you have this time and you have been given this time, and what you do with it matters. Also, death is so uncertain and can come at such unexpected times. You think about all the videos that you see of people that have survived experiences that are almost certain to lead to death. And for example, there's a video of a guy on the internet who is just walking down the street, and a bus loses control, and the bus hits the guy. The guy is literally being like the bus hits the back of him, and he is basically being um, basically driven into this shop front, almost certain that he's going to die. But CCTV footage shows that he just falls over after he gets like hit against the window of the shop. He gets up and he walks off, and he walks into the closest shop. And it's like, in that situation, death was almost certain for him, but he was able to survive. So I
Mm.
think death comes to you at the right moment, if you can kind of understand what I mean by that.
Yeah, I
Is
know.
that some people just die out of really freakish situations, and it's just like, how the fuck did he die there?
Mm.
But other people survive such amazing experiences that it changes people. After that, I'm sure the guy who nearly died must have been like, the adrenaline running through him and everything must have been like, Jesus Christ, I survived that.
Yeah.
And the
Exactly.
power that you would get from something like that would just be like unreal, I think.
Mm. Definitely. And you got a pretty cool story to tell your mates as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah, just took a trip on the bus and I didn't have to pay for it.
well, good mate. But an important thing that I read the other day actually was that we're not we're remembered by our impact on other people's lives.
Mm,
So when you're going through life, it's not about what you accumulate or what you did. It's what you gave to people
mm,
rather than what you take.
exactly.
And ultimately, there is going to be a point where you're forgotten, right? So, do you know who your great, 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 great granddad was? No.
No.
Well, probably not.
And
Because,
you only know of him because of a photo.
yeah, so over time, you just do get forgotten, really. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe not with all the information like technology that we live behind now,
Mm,
but it's more than likely in 200 years' time, nobody's really going to know who you are or what you did unless you made a pretty big impact. And the way you make a big impact is by doing stuff for other people or becoming known for doing something great. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Leaving a legacy is definitely a great motivator for a lot of people.
100%. So, yeah, that's kind
Because
of,
it
yeah, go
makes
on.
you. I was just going to say it kind of. It makes the people that know you proud of the person of you in that
Mm,
regard.
yeah, I know what you
Is
mean.
you know.
100%. So yeah, that's kind of death as a motivator summed up. And the last thing we wanted to touch on is death in a kind of spiritual perspective. It's a bit of a strange topic, but I think we both find it quite interesting. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
myself that I'm like spiritual, but there are
Mm.
certain aspects where I'm like, okay, yeah, that is quite interesting.
Yeah, being just generally interested in spirituality can definitely help you gain a more kind of positive perspective on life, because you
Mm.
realize with spirituality that there's a separation between your spirit, like the you, your personality, and your body,
Mm.
and that your body is just an exterior shell that you live in, and it was constructed by science, essentially DNA.
Yeah.
It's been constructed, but that people then place a lot of emphasis on their physical body, and you need to realize that it's when you look at a person, you're not your body isn't communicating with the other body, your
Yeah.
spirit is communicating with the other spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once you kind of realize that, then
I,
I think it's quite liberating to understand the difference between your spirit
mm,
and your body.
yeah. I would urge anybody listening to this to start looking into certain spirituality things, whether it's
Yeah.
not a TED talk, there's something else on YouTube. London Real. I think London Real have got a good
Okay.
videos on it, and
Mm.
we've read the book The Power of Now. It's proper interesting stuff. Like, I find it
Mm.
fascinating. And another thing is like your body is kind of just like a shell. So your body is almost a suit that you wear to experience life.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's
It
weird
allows
to
you to
hear.
experience life.
Yeah, so you're like the life inside your body, right?
Mm.
And people are gonna think I'm absolutely fucking mental.
Yeah, what's he taken?
Yeah, but like I'm not saying that's true or it's fact or anything. I'm just saying it's a perspective.
Yeah.
It is something I've read, and
Mm.
another interesting thing is that we're made up of energy and matter, and energy and matter cannot be destroyed. So does
Yes.
that mean that we live forever?
Yes.
Maybe.
That
Who
is,
knows?
yeah, exactly.
But it's proper
It's
cool
deaf an
stuff.
illusion.
Yeah.
Are we just kind of, I don't know, in a weird way, are we just like kind of travelers? Like our spirit just
But,
as you said, it's energy. It changes form, it changes
mm,
like kind of shape. So do you just occupy the body that you're in now, and then when you die, but in fact your body just dies because
yeah.
that's its natural process.
Mm,
There it can't it like in the DNA there's certain strand that it's very sciencey in terms of why we age, like aging and death.
mm,
But like you could think about death as, oh, death is just the my body having enough, it being kind of through too much, like it's been through 90 years of life, it's lived, but now it just needs to, like the heart shuts down, the brain shuts down, but your spirit is still burning and alive in you.
mm.
So are you just occupying different shells, and then once you start to realize that you are a spirit, is
Yeah.
that the objective of life? That could potentially be the objective of life, to understand that you are a spirit and that you are just not your body.
Mm. Or are we just in a simulation? Who knows?
Yeah.
You know what?
That's the thing. There's so many myths or conspiracy theories like that, and I
That's
think
why I'm
you've got
so interested
I
in
think
it.
you've got to be open to that
Mm.
sort of stuff.
Yeah, if you want to hear a whole podcast on like spirituality and all that kind
Mm,
of stuff to do with death and like is death an illusion, let us know because it's something that I think we both are pretty fascinated
yeah,
by.
definitely talk about that all day.
Mm. But I think that's for today's podcast.
Yeah.
Just kind of finish on a few little pointers of just that life is going to end. Like said it 100
Mm,
times before, say it again, you're going to die. So
mm,
find out what really matters to you. Like we said in the beginning, if you're on your deathbed right now, you'd realize your social media likes don't matter, money doesn't matter, clothes don't matter, any of that stuff. Just be the best possible version of yourself, leave a big impact on others, don't stress, and just enjoy life.
100%. Don't think you could have ended that any better, mate.
Perfect. So hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you did, subscribe, follow, whatever platform you're listening on, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.